So is anything impossible? Most people think that nothing's impossible, and usually they say something like this. Many things we thought were impossible are now possible. We thought it was impossible to fly to the moon, but now we can. So nothing's really impossible. With time, all things are possible. And to think otherwise is to lack humility or imagination. So is this true? Consider the following candidates for impossibility. First, in the future I may be able to visualize an object outside of space and time. This seems impossible in principle, or always impossible, because visualization presupposes seeing an object in space. So if there were a non-spatial object, we could never visualize it. The method cannot accommodate the object. We might be able to visualize the effects of an extra-dimensional quote-unquote object on this one, but not the actual extra-dimensional object, precisely because it's extra-dimensional. It's like a 2D line trying to contemplate a 3D cube. It's impossible, right? And it always will be. So one way things can be impossible at all times is if the methodology cannot accommodate the reality, if the square peg cannot fit into the circular hole. Here's a second candidate. In the future I may find a married bachelor or a triangle with 5 sides. Now once we eliminate the ambiguity and assume these words will mean the same thing over time, these seem impossible. Whereas the first impossibility, the one about visualization, arises from the scope of methodology, this impossibility seems to be based on semantics, on the meaning of the words bachelor and triangle. But still, impossible always, it seems. The third possibility, or third candidate, says, in the future I may both exist and not exist in the same way at the same time and space. This impossibility doesn't seem semantic or methodological, though there may be an argument for it being so. For this one, once we eliminate the ambiguity with the word exist, it seems like we must believe that each entity either exists or it doesn't exist. Not even modern physics and examples like Schrodinger's cat can refute this impossibility of reality, because Schrodinger's cat is about how to interpret modern quantum physics, how to determine how far quantum physics goes. If it goes so far as to say that the cat simultaneously exists and doesn't exist, then it's gone too far. Eventually we must prove that the cat either exists or doesn't exist. It just can't be simultaneously both. And physicists are currently working on doing just that. So I may both exist and not exist in the same way at the same time seems impossible at all times. Here's another one. In the future, a hammer will be able to sing. Okay, this one's absurd. Sometimes people try to get out of this impossibility by playing with ambiguity. For example, maybe hammer is a name of a person or of a radio. But once you eliminate ambiguity, once you pin down the meaning of hammer in this context, then it seems reasonable to believe that hammers will never sing. Perhaps it's even impossible for them to do so. There's other candidates for things being impossible in principle, but that should be sufficient to get you thinking about this. Some of the other candidates are like science explaining the intentionality of consciousness or the subjectivity of it. And there's other candidates too. But so is anything impossible? Can you confidently and with good reasons claim that some things will always be impossible? I think so, but maybe you disagree. The last few examples, no matter what you think, should help you form a more reasoned opinion. And one point with these examples is to think deeply, especially about the methodology you're using, whether it be science, logic, math, introspection, trial and error, or what have you, because then you'll become aware of what is outside the scope of your methodology, and therefore what may be impossible using that methodology. Right? So the humble position may not lie in the denial of impossibility. Rather, humility lies in understanding the scope and the limits of your methodology, and thereby seeing what's impossible for that methodology. And so what do you think? Is anything ever impossible, or is nothing impossible? Thanks.